All right. Welcome, everyone. We are so excited to show you our app, Account Engagement Automates Record Creation. But before we jump into our demo, we want to walk through our agenda. So we're going to have a round of introductions to introduce ourselves. We'll also introduce you to our app and walk you through how it works. And then we'll have a quick demo. I'm super excited to show you the demo today. And then we will end our discussion with what this means for the Marketing Cloud ecosystem. And we're really thinking about not only what the app means, but really what bigger changes we're seeing in the account engagement space may mean for Marketing Cloud and our ecosystem as well. All right, with that, let's jump into some introductions.
Hi, all. I'm Chris Bayerle, and I'm a solution consultant at Salesforce who specializes in account engagement. Jacqueline?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jacqueline Fassett. I am also a solution consultant at Salesforce who also specializes in account engagement. And you are welcome to call me Jack. I will be sharing my screen today, and I'm going to try to keep the chat monitored as well. But please forgive me if I'm managing both things. It's really nice to meet everyone. Benj?
Yep. Hi, everybody. Amanda Benjamin. If you have questions while I'm speaking to Jack's theme, feel free to just shout Benj. If you have a question, interrupt me, no problem. I'm a solution architect at Salesforce as well, specializing in account engagement and Salesforce. All three of us previously worked for a partner together. So we also come from, our consulting background together is many, many years. And so what you'll find as we jump in today is really just as a result of endless number of clients and client requirements, how we came about kind of an idea for a gap that we felt in the product. And so that's what we wanted to try to solve for. And that's what we'll dive more into today. Thanks for having us. All right, so meet the app. Out of the box, I'm sure if, without knowing kind of everyone's familiarity with Pardot, if you're just purchasing it and implementing it, or if you've been using it for quite some time and you yourself maybe recognize some gaps that maybe this app can help with. For those of you who don't know, out of the box, the integration between Pardot and Salesforce, you have the choice of a traditional sync, which is that Pardot will create new leads in your Salesforce instance. On the flip side, there are certainly organizations who maybe aren't using leads, or at least not yet, in whatever their maturity scale is, or even just needs of their CRM management. And so in that case, you have the option for Pardot to use what's called a reverse sync, in which case it would actually create new contacts directly rather than new leads. But you can't have it both of those ways. You're either creating leads or you're creating contacts natively with your Salesforce integration. And so, as I just mentioned, some of the gap that we were finding was, and as some of you may know, marketing is becoming more and more ingrained with more departments of your organization, not just sales. So, naturally, there's a large preaching of account engagement and Salesforce and alignment of marketing and sales, but perhaps there's also account-based marketing initiatives or marketing and service alignment to really make sure that marketing is incorporating into latter stages of a customer life cycle and potentially cases. So the gap that we were finding was how can we enable clients to create more than just leads in a traditional sync or contacts in a reverse sync, but even go beyond just person creation. So the app is there to help with creating contacts and accounts. So if you are creating brand new contacts, not leaving them orphaned and having an account that gets created as well. Creating opportunities and of course, opportunity contact roles, creating cases. And while it's not prescribed into the app at the moment, there is a foundation here for which you can certainly use some of what's been built if you wanted to create custom objects, which is also a very common request. Now, the way that this idea came about.
Oh, sorry, Benj.
No, it's all good. I was just going to say, if you're wondering what the bottom corner is, we mentioned that we had this kind of prompt for kind of seeking an idea of how we could bridge some gaps with the product. And so Salesforce is actually who put on a contest to expand upon Pardot with external actions. And we actually won that contest. So if you're curious, how did we come about this? How did we have the resources to do this? How did we get it on the App Exchange? It was as a result of a contest that we wanted very much so to participate in and obviously win, which thankfully we did. And now we're here to share more with you guys. So let's talk about some of those more specific use cases if you're not sure how maybe to wrap your head around that. So it's very generally speaking, it's leads and contacts. So perhaps you need the traditional sync. You want to create new leads for people who need to go through more qualification, get into your marketing qualified, into your sales qualified, things like that. But perhaps you also want to create contacts directly in certain initiatives, whether those be account-based marketing initiatives, or maybe it's just it's a current customer type of initiative, and therefore you want to make sure that you're creating contacts directly with any existing accounts, not leads. Another example of this would be if you're such as a nonprofit organization or a higher ed institution. Sometimes leads are reserved for very unique types of individuals, whereas contacts, if they fill out an RFI, then you want them straight into contacts. I'm going to mute if you want to jump in really quick, and my dog might stop barking at a very untimely spot.
Sure. Yeah. So we can also create other things like opportunities, right? I think an example here that I always think about is for an organization that maybe you have a form that should be for current customers you already have, that represents like maybe an upsell or a cross sell. Well, you don't want to create a new lead or take them all the way back through that life cycle. You want a new prospect to jump that lead record, and you want to create an opportunity, or maybe that contact already exists and you want to create an opportunity associated with that record, right? So you can do that with this external action, with this app that helps you create that opportunity record. Another one is cases, right? And this is one I get asked for a lot. Imagine you have a PARDOT form, right, that represents maybe a service issue, right? You might not want to create a lead or contact from that form. It might be for something that's already in your system, right? But you might want to create a case from the information that's put in the form, right? So you can use this app to kind of create that new record from that prospect record that represents a case and goes straight to your service organization. Then,
sorry, Chris, I did not mean to put you on the spot. He was not going to stop because it was a UPS man who needed my signature. So I definitely had to walk away for a second. So just picking up really quick before we pivot out of this, one of the ones that I am very passionate about, but like I said, we've not prescribed this just because custom objects are custom and very innate to the org and the client. So it's hard to prescribe exactly what would work for everyone. So another example that we hear a lot is, well, can we create records in Salesforce for form submissions? Or maybe that translates specifically to expressions of interest or hand raises, MQLs, whatever your terminology might be. Naturally with PARDOT, if we're collecting person level information, if we're trying to simulate maintaining a lifetime collection of responses or hand raises, we know right now that through the lead or the contact, you're likely overwriting certain information over time. So being able to kind of skip some of that tech debt, if you do in fact do that, to where we can just immediately spin off, they filled out this form and we want to make sure that, an expression of interest record is created with whatever the collection of that form was. So Jacqueline, if you want to click, we just want to pause here and see if, I don't know what happened to our bubble there, but we just want to pause here and see, does anyone have any other use cases that kind of come to mind? Do any of these resonate? Naturally, part of us demoing, we want to hear from you all for any other use cases, this could extend to, or just hear kind of how this might resonate at all, if at all, for anyone attending. Anybody have any thoughts or questions at that rate? Yeah, cases. Could we create an event attendee if it is a custom object? I mean, presumably the biggest thing would just be, if you have a way to make sure that you're specifying if it is a certain form, for example, then yeah, if you have an attendee custom object, then the intent, again, we don't have that built directly into the app at the moment, but the foundation would be there for kind of copying any of the assets that we have in the app, which Jacqueline will get into here shortly. You just need to make sure that what you're capturing from the form, if it is a Pardot form, if you're capturing that information into Pardot, then you just need to make sure that you're capturing whatever the data is that might be required to create the object or the record of that object for that matter.
It reminds me that one of the examples we heard recently was a survey, I think, in a
Yeah.
custom object, right? Related to that leader contact. And I thought that was such a great idea, you know?
Awesome.
Cool.
So real quick before I pass to Jacqueline, I believe our demo is next. We do just have a referenceable slide here. I think Ben included some in the invite itself for the meeting, but should you go back and review the deck, there is quite a few ways to easily get to the app. If you're curious, putting it into a demo org, or if you are in fact looking at it for production type of live use cases. One thing to note, it is free. There is no cost. It is a free app for anyone who can access the App Exchange. And it is unmanaged, something that we want to call out just because there is a kind of maybe a stereotype in that. It is unmanaged. And the reason for that is so that you all can customize it to your organization's needs. As we get into the demo, you'll notice that there are very org specific pieces that have to make some of these triggers tick. So field values and record IDs and things like that. So it is unmanaged for that reason, so that you all can further tailor once it's installed. But it does not mean that we won't be managing it. We do intend to manage, oversee it, make changes, enhance it, etc. And we obviously have not had to do that, but we'll learn from that and document that process once we get there. But yeah, so referenceable slide for you all to come back to should you be interested.
All right, let's dig into a demo. So before we jump into all of the app in a demo org, I want to talk through what's included now that we've talked through use cases. So first, you can see on this lovely graphic that Chris built for us, what's included in the app. We have one marketing app extension called Create Records from MCAE Marketing Cloud Account Engagement. And that marketing app extension has 4 external actions. So you'll get that marketing app extension with its 4 external actions in the app. You will use those marketing app extension external actions in an engagement studio. So we wanted to make sure you understood that you will still need to build an engagement studio program to use these external actions. And I'll show you what that looks like. But this comes included inside of the app for your use inside of account engagement. Now we've also included 4 flows that are tied to each external action. So you'll see that in the naming convention. So that will make it easy for you to know which external action ties to which flow. But when you download the app, you'll get this marketing app extension with 4 external actions in the 4 flows. And you'll just need to build the Engagement Studio program and customize the flows additionally to your organization's needs. All right, so this is what's included and a little overview of how to use them. I want to jump into the demo. So excuse me while I jump into a different org. Give me 1 second. All right, so let's walk through this in our demo org. So first, let's imagine a prospect fills out a form and comes into account engagement. And this prospect, Danny Cho, if anyone's seen Beef from Netflix, from Acho Service, is ready to engage with us. Now, our team has determined that Danny should not be a lead, and we want Danny to become a contact with an account immediately. So what we need to do here is get Danny into an engagement studio program that has one of those external actions, the create contact and account external action, that will then trigger the flow and create his record inside of Salesforce. So we need to get Danny onto the list that's tied to that Engagement Studio program. I'm going to show you the Engagement Studio program, but before I do, note that Danny does not have a cloud icon next to his prospect record just yet. So here we are in the Engagement Studio that we built for all of this action. We can see here that there is a list that we'll be adding Danny to called prospects who should be contacts. Let's go ahead and get Danny added to that prospects who should be contacts list. All right, so Danny is now on the list. We're going to come back to his record later where there should be a cloud icon. We're going to keep moving through the Engagement Studio program and show you all the inner workings of our app and how it would work in your account engagement instance. So again, back to the Engagement Studio program, we've got him on the list. Now we're moving through the program and we see the first checkpoint that we've created, and we would recommend your team to create as well, is checking if they're already assigned. We don't want to create duplicates, at least in our instance. You can certainly remove this if you want to intentionally create duplicates. But in our instance, we do not want to create duplicates. So we're going to check to make sure they're not already assigned. And if they are, they'll end the program. If they're not, you'll notice that they go to this next step, which is an external action step. So our external action step, the create account contact step, has some settings here that will pull in the fields that are necessary to create a contact and an account in Salesforce. And there's 4 fields that come out of the box with our app. And that's company name, email address, first and last name. And I'll show you in a second how you can customize this to add additional fields should you need to. So he's going to run through this step. It's going to grab these fields and it's going to send him into a flow. And then, of course, he'll end the program. So Danny's running through this right now. Let's go ahead and look in Salesforce at the marketing app extension and specifically the create account contact external action that we've created. So we've got the, let me go back here to the marketing app extension main page. We've got a marketing app extension. This is the one that comes with our app called Create Records from MCAE. Note that it's active for automation use. So this is how we'll be able to use this inside of account engagement. And under the related tab, we've got those 4 actions that come with the app. So we've got create account contact here, the one that we're using in this demo today, plus the 4 others that we've talked through. One thing we also want to note that your team will need to customize, and this is in a guide that we'll talk about later, is you'll need to add a business unit. So we've added our business unit right here. And when you add the app to your instance, you'll need to go in and assign it to a business unit as well. Now back to the action that we'll be using in today's demo, create account contact. I've clicked on it and you can see here, this is what is included in the details page. So we've got that name, we've got a quick description for you so you and your admin know what this is and why it's there and what it's supposed to do. But you've also got an invocable action and an invocable action schema. Now in this schema, you'll note it says company name, email address, first name, and last name. Those are the same 4 fields that you saw in the Engagement Studio program. And you can edit this schema to include additional fields that you may need to bring in when you create an account and a contact. We've included these 4 out of the box because they're standard fields and it's the base that you need to create those records. But you can, once you install this app, go in and edit this with your admin or a developer to further tailor it to your needs. Now let's talk about that invocable action. The invocable action here is actually a flow and it's called create account contact. Again, we keep the naming conventions similar so you know exactly what is included. So once Danny hits this step and we've collected these 4 fields, this create account contact flow, the invocable action, is triggered. So let's go ahead and walk through that flow. So again, there's 4 flows, each tied to an external action in our app. And you'll notice those flows when you download our app. Let's go look at that flow. So Danny is now running through this flow, which again is included in the app. And I'm going to walk you through each of these steps. So first off, the first step we're looking at is, are there null prospect values? Meaning, did one of those 4 fields that we looked at, were they empty? Because we certainly don't want to create a record if one of those are empty, especially something as important as company name or maybe their email address. Obviously, that wouldn't be empty in Pardot, but if you tailor to your needs and add additional fields, we do want to make sure everything you need is there. So if there are null values, they will end the program. If there are not any null values, they'll keep going. We have labeled and added help text to this flow so you and your admin know exactly what's happening at each step of the way, and you can edit it to your further liking if you need to add more steps or you need to change any of those help texts. After we've checked for null values, we'll be moving on to finding the B2B MA integration user. Now, this is the user that we're going to assign Danny to. If this needs to be someone different in your organization, then you can change that here. And we'll talk about further customization in a second. After that, we're going to look for duplicate records. Again, we don't want to intentionally create duplicate records in your instance, so we have baked in steps to check for duplicates throughout the app. If you need to remove these because you're intentionally creating duplicates, you certainly can. So if there is a duplicate record and it exists, we're going to end the program because we don't need to create that record. If there's not an existing contact record that matches, we're going to go ahead and move forward to find an existing account. Again, we don't want to create duplicates if we can help it. If there's an existing account, then we're going to go ahead and just create that contact record on the existing account. Now, if there's neither an account or a contact record that exists, we're going to create the account and then create the contact. And again, these are all the steps that Danny's going through right now. I'm going to pause here because I've talked a lot, I've shared a lot. I want to see if there's any questions before we move forward and check back in on Danny. Just taking a peek at the chat.
Jacqueline, you may want to just take this chance if there's no questions while we're on the flow, just talking through like this is where they would be able to adjust that schema with the input variables.
Yeah, so if we go to our toolbox over here, you've got all these variables that we've baked in for you. You can adjust the variables or add additional ones should you need to. Let's take a look at first name. So as you can see here, we've made this available for input, which is what makes it available to use inside of the flow. So we can grab it from Pardot, use it in the flow, insert it into a record. And if you need to add additional fields, we recommend that you review how we've built this flow and mimic that in your creation of additional fields. Chris or Benj, what additional context should we add?
I think that's it. The only other thing I'm thinking is if you add additional variables that are available for input like this, right? And when Jacqueline showed us that external action in the marketing data extension, if you update the flow there or reload it, it will insert your variables here directly into that schema for you so that you can continue to adjust them there in that schema as well. So it makes it very easy, right, to update these flows and your marketing app extension pretty automatically.
We've kept it fairly simple, as Jacqueline's mentioned. So I think the call out would just be, you may be thinking, oh, there's so many things that we'd want to add here as inputs and then tack them into the record creation. You do just have to be mindful, of course, that you're going to need to have that data on the Pardot prospect in order to actually populate that external action dynamically, right? So just be mindful of everything that you think you might need to create the record is also something that you would need to make sure that you are capturing, assuming it is required for that record to be created.
Yeah, I think that's a great additional input, especially thinking about Justin's example in the chat of this custom event attendee record. So Justin, if you were going to install our app, you would have this flow and the others at your disposal, and you could use them as a foundation to build your own additional flow and make sure that you're building out an automation that's going to support that record creation. Now, you will need to build an external action, an engagement studio program, and a flow that will help facilitate the creation of that event attendee record. But all of what's included in our app will help you understand how to better build those things out and hopefully get you a jump start with using marketing app extensions and Flow. And that's part of why we built our app. We don't just want to help you do this quickly out of the box, so that is certainly helpful. We want you to also understand how these things work so you can build something to your own needs and customize it for your own org.
Can I play, I don't know if it's contrarian or devil's advocate? The thing that always gets me with these things, and I think that this is tremendous. This is just really cool. But, and I've said this on past calls with product managers who've gone in and talked about external actions and so on. This is not easy. I feel like it is sometimes glossed over. Like, this is not something that, in my opinion, the everyday admin of par.org is going to be like, I could do this. This is fine. Like, sometimes, and I get why it's glossed over, because obviously you want to get people excited about it, but like, just to be real about it, like, I don't know how to do this. Like, I would have to talk to people and literally handhold me through how to do this. So I want to just kind of clear the air about that. I want to make sure that people understand that this is not something that, while it's cool that we do have this app here, but you're still it's very likely that you are going to have to connect with either as someone who's an experienced admin who's got experience with invocable actions, or a developer, or someone who's kind of a not quite developer but more of an admin. So that I think that's important to say, that that you could download this app and it'd be great, but then it's like, okay, now what? Yeah. What do I even do? And so if you guys wouldn't mind, obviously you guys have a narrative here, and you guys need to kind of get through this. But I think at some point, whether it's now or later, if you have a basket of like recommendations for how you can actually use this, who should be your next call once you download this, who should you be partnering up with to actually make this work?
So we can answer it now, and it'll give more time for Jacqueline's record to run through everything. Valid point, 1000%. And I would argue that when we identified this as an idea for the contest, the whole purpose of the contest was, how can we make external actions more approachable and kind of tangible, like seeing use cases and how they would be used, right? That's what the contest was for. And I think prior to that, we would have said the exact same thing. Honestly, I think we would still say the same things about, we would still come together, the three of us, to ideate what other ones we could build for the app, because it isn't still a fluent thing for us because we're not touching it daily. What I would say is, in our user guide, we do strongly recommend that even before you install it, that you're reviewing the app with your Salesforce admin if you are not also a Salesforce admin. So there should already be an alignment with your Salesforce admin on, we can install this, we want to use it, the admin's comfortable with that. Maybe you decide which ones you even want to use, from the app. You don't need to use all of them. But we would say, even from the beginning, there should be a partnership with the Salesforce admin to make sure that there is no, you're kicking off adding things into their org as well that they're comfortable with. Then if you do install it, the whole intent, as Jacqueline, I think, was just alluding to, is even if a par.admin can't say, okay, I'm going to go build this, or if they have the ability to do that in their org, this gives a blueprint and a way to do a bit of a translation with your Salesforce admin. So half the battle for maybe everyday par.admins is that it is hard to articulate to a Salesforce admin if you need something like this, if you even know something like this is possible, right? Like, those are two barriers to get over. So the hope is, even if a par.admin isn't able to install this, run with it entirely on their own, there is there's the kind of an ability to bridge the language barrier, right? I, as a part of my admin, can show you something, or even if I have gotten familiar with the flows that I now have in here, I'm able now to see a way to express what I'm trying to do in flow language, if that makes sense. So totally appreciate that not every par.admin is going to be able to go in and manage this on their own, and some of them may not even have permissions to do so in their org. But the hope is that this is at least a starting point, that some of those conversations can start, or that languages can start to overlap. in whatever that partnership may need to be in order to leverage this. So
Okay.
it's not a foolproof response, because I think we agree with you, Ben. There's no way to change that. But
yeah, I just want to make sure that it's that people like appreciate that, because it can be, it's very exciting, cool. We have this app and we can download it, and it's you guys can only go so far in terms of like giving people as many resources as possible to make it functional. But it's also important to know that like unless you are like all like at that level in core and in Pardot, sorry, account engagement, you're likely gonna have to partner with somebody to like help make this actually come to life. Having all those steps already built out in the app is super helpful, but it can sometimes, I mean, I've talked to people, I've experienced it myself when I've had these kind of product, what I kind of basically the product previews and stuff with people who are doing external actions, and it's great, but like I found that not everyone, like even Salesforce like consultants, have a lot of experience with local actions. Like I'm not totally sure how to do that, and they have to work through it. And they're like, oh, okay, now I get it. But it's like there's certain parts of this that it's and obviously the barrier is gonna like keep getting weaker and easier to get through. But you got to start somewhere. But it was just important to like kind of raise that this is something that is going to be a project for you to develop, to build relationships, to make sure that all the endpoints work. That this is not something that it's not a like one of those all orgs already have this turned on. It's already function. That's not it. It's going to take time and nailing an actual use case to commit to like the resource investment to make it work.
Absolutely. And we understand that everyone's going to come at this with different levels of knowledge and experience. So we just wanted to do as much as we could within our own control and power. And that was to build an app to show account engagement admins and their Salesforce admin counterparts what this could look like. And to a point, Brian's point in the chat, we do expect that this app would be installed in a sandbox first so that you can play around with it. You can understand its parts. You can walk through building out additional customization or flows and actions with your admin before it ever goes into production. We were very, very careful about making sure to include clear naming conventions, names, and help text everywhere we built into the app, so that if either of you aren't very experienced in Flow, we could at least help you see what it could look like. And hopefully you'll also continue to lean on other resources in the community and Trailhead to continue to build that out. This is just like any complex feature inside of Salesforce and account engagement. It's going to take some learning to do, and we're just hoping that this helps you get one step closer to fully understanding the power of marketing app extensions and Flow together. But you know, we can't get everyone there 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you guys like recognizing that. And I didn't mean to interrupt the flow of the presentation, but
you're good. You're good. Actually, it relates back to our last slide, which Chris is going to cover in a greater discussion, right? This is a bigger discussion for the marketing cloud. And I'm saying marketing cloud as in marketing cloud account engagement, but I do think it also includes just marketers in general who use Salesforce. There's a bigger conversation in our ecosystem that needs to happen. And we're going to start that conversation with you at the very end of this call. So we wanted to introduce you to our app, but talk about what's really going on and other ways that we can align our work with the other platforms. Oh, cool. Brian also just included Einstein GPT for flows might help out here too. Yeah, there's tons of resources. And I think it is going to take us all a little bit of digging in and leaning forward to get this done and build what we need. But we're hoping that this will at least help you take that first step. Let's go ahead and check back in on Danny, and then we can talk through our user guide, customizations, and that greater conversation we want to have with everyone. All right, so this is our flow. Again, we highly recommend downloading and installing in a sandbox so you can look at our other flows. Let's go check back in on Danny. So Danny should have been added to this list, which is our prospects who should be contacts list. I'm gonna let it load and see if our friend Danny is on the list. If Danny is on the list, he's now got our great little cloud icon. So let's go ahead and view him in the CRM. So Danny, as we can see, is now a contact. Now we've got traditional sync on. He should just be a lead out of the box, but with the marketing app extension and the flow, he's now been turned immediately into a contact with an account for his ACHO service business. And we can see his record is right here, and it is owned by the B2BMA integration user. Again, the user we set up in the flow to own this record. So this was successful. So you can see our app works pretty quickly out of the box to create those records and bypass whatever your sync options are. So I'm going to go ahead and flip back into our slides, and we can talk about ways to customize it and our user guide and get into that bigger discussion. So first off, again, there are many ways to customize this app. The 4 things we want you to consider are record owners. So you just saw we out of the box assigned to the B2BMA integration user because everyone has that user in their Salesforce org, but you may want to change that to someone else in your instance. We also showed you the 4 fields that we use. You can change those, add more, whatever you need to do to make sure that the required fields that are necessary to build that record are in the action and the flow. Naming conventions in some of our other flows, like the one that creates opportunities, we have created a standard formula for those naming conventions to help you get started, but we highly recommend that you consider editing those formulas so that they are in line with your current naming conventions. And if you don't have naming conventions, this is a great place to start considering what they could look like. Now, finally, duplicates. I showed you this quite a bit. We do not want to create duplicates, but if you would like to, if you need a reason for intentional duplicates, you can certainly do that by editing the actions and the flows and the Engagement Studio program that you create to create those. But we do want you to know that we check for duplicates throughout. So this is 4 ways to customize it. We do actually have a full Quip guide. I'm just going to show you a little glimpse of that guide. And again, we'll share these slides with Ben so that you can go through them on your own. But our Quip guide, once it loads, will walk you through installation and setup. Anything in red will be a mandatory change or something that you definitely need to talk through with your admin. There are screenshots, very clear steps on exactly how to use it. And we even have a guide for every single flow and action. So it talks through what it does, when you should use it, things that will need to be customized, things to consider like looking for duplicates or finding existing accounts. So again, we're hoping that this user guide helps you not only understand what you're going to use and spark a conversation and alignment with your admin, but also better understand how these tools work for you should you need to customize it more or build something totally new for a custom object. All right, so with that, I'm actually going to take a breath from talking and pass it to Chris to walk us through considerations.
Yeah, and we've talked about a few of these considerations already, but this is a slide where I go, be careful. Let's talk about it. Let's be really conscious about what we're doing. So, as we've already talked about, you probably will have to work with a Salesforce admin to install the app. This is a Salesforce app that installs Salesforce components, right? Even if those components connect to account engagement, right? So you have to work with an admin or be a Salesforce admin yourself. Like Jacqueline just mentioned, there is a little bit of configuration required before you can use it. Specifically, opportunity stages. You have to tell the flow what opportunity stage you want to create an opportunity in. Otherwise, most everything else will run without any configuration, right? Unless you want to change it, something. We really recommend using an account engagement sandbox if you have it and installing it there first. But if you don't have a sandbox, still test the external actions in Engagement Studio program, right, with some test prospects, just to make sure everything's working correctly. The external actions error page is new and available in account engagement settings, so that if you install this, you create a test, run a test prospect through your program, right, and it's not working, you can review this page to kind of troubleshoot and figure out maybe why it's not working. And then finally, I think as Benj pointed out, right, we really recommend combining engagement studio logic, those little stops like, is this person already in our system? Are they assigned already, right? In combination with flow logic to really avoid errors and avoid creating duplicate records in your organization. So those are some considerations. Let's talk now about what this app means now and in the future, right? So we just showed you this app. Here's what you get today if you download this app. We can create leads and contacts. So we saw Jacqueline demo that for us. You can create cases, right, and send them to your service team. You can create opportunities and opportunity contact roles immediately. And potentially you can create records of any other custom object in your org with a new flow, right, connected through this marketing app extension. So that's where we are today. What this means for the future, and I think we've already talked about this a little bit, is this potentially creates a new, this is a way, I like the way Ben said it, right? This is a way of building a language together, right, with your Salesforce admin. So marketing admins, account engagement admins, looking at this app, I think can start to learn more about what their Salesforce admins are expecting and learn how to talk to them so that they get exactly what they want, right? On top of this, right, this becomes a tool for our account engagement admins out there to learn flow better, right? Or learn APIs if that's an interest for you. I know not everyone can do that, and we have other priorities we have to get to, but as Jacqueline mentioned, this is an unmanaged package. So if you are interested in taking your career to that level and becoming a flow expert or really digging into APIs or understanding these external actions, our app gives you that foundation. You can pull it apart. You can dig into it, figure out how things are connected together, right? Because we've done that first work for you. So to kind of ease you into that. And finally, what I think this means is we should be thinking about automating everything. External actions and external activities really extend the possibilities of account engagement, right? So looking at this app, we should all be thinking, what more can we do with account engagement? Jacqueline and Ben, any other questions or thoughts?
I just add on that I think we all know that it's been a little bit of time, like it's been a year or two now, that to manage account engagement means that you really need to understand Salesforce. Like it's been, a few years in the making already, where that familiarity or that skill level to manage Pardot or account engagement effectively, like it's no longer the way that it used to be a few years back, right? Like you need to have a core understanding of core. And so I think that's been in the making. I think now, though, really all that we're highlighting with this handshake is just that when it comes to external actions, when it comes to the API, when it comes to this app specifically, then there is, of course, a required meeting of the minds to even get going with it. Um, that's really what we're calling out there. But I would just, anything for the group or Ben, anybody have any thoughts on, well, the whole presentation, the app, questions, feedback? We are taking feedback in the event there are certain things you're looking for. So we've heard surveys, we've heard event attendees now. Thanks, Justin. We've heard a few different things. So any questions, thoughts on the discussion, feedback, we'll take any of them.
Well, I think it's great. I think it definitely is a another piece in the puzzle of kind of extensibility across core, and with a lot of the enterprise or enterprise light clients, clients who are increasingly needing more out of account engagement, especially when it comes to core.
Yeah.
Because I always try to reframe account engagement as the marketing automation end of the Salesforce core platform.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something it is its own thing, but it's also not. And
Right.
so I think the being able to create additional being able to do additional object creation is a big deal, especially accounts, because out of the box it's read only. You can't do anything with any of that stuff. Same with opportunities. I would be very interested to find out, like, typically in like the campaign creation process, you create the campaign first and then you add people to it. It'd be very interesting to find out, like, hear about whether there's any use cases where you have campaigns, instead of having to create the campaign ahead of time, if there's a way to like have it be as part of the flow. We launch a campaign and say, oh, I need to create another campaign for this thing. It may not be common, but I'm just like, the campaign object is one that's Pardot typically does not have a lot of, it's read only. You can't do anything with it. You can't even access the custom fields that you create on a campaign. So any ways to further leverage the campaign object would be welcome, whether it's in this capacity or in another way. But the ability to create custom object records, accounts, opportunities, creating opportunities is huge. Is there a way when you create the opportunities to also append contact roles as part of that?
Yeah, that's what the two flows that are in here that do create opportunities. We have the whole enchilada, as I like to call it, which is account, contact, opportunity, and opportunity contact role.
Okay.
And then the other one that is just opportunities. Like I know Chris took this on and I had to step away, so he may have covered this well, but like if you are running a current customer initiative and you know that if they fill out that form, all you're trying to do is create an opportunity to represent, that conversion or that hand raise. In that case, the opportunity would be created, and then using that prospect's information, the ID, it would then create the contact role. So.
Okay, yeah, because it'd be very interesting to, like, because I mean, you guys know that like sales is loath to create contact roles and opportunities. So if you can take it out of their hands, I mean, you're putting it back on marketing's shoulders.
We knew that we couldn't create something with external actions, creating opportunities, and not create the opportunity contact role. That would really go against basically everything ingrained in account engagement. So we knew that we had to create the contact role if we were going to create the opportunity. So each of the current flows that are in there right now, they are intended to create the opportunity as well as the opportunity contact role. Okay.
Yeah, that's great. That's I don't have any more questions. It looks like there's people who are super excited to see some kind of detailed documentation. If you guys are aware of any resources for someone to become more upskilled and familiar with how to build, I mean, I know there's stuff out there, but if you guys are aware of resources that would help someone who's like a Pardot or accounting admin, who wants to learn how to build an external action, whether it's referring back to what already exists or if you're familiar with other resources, because the process of creating an external action can be a little technically daunting if you've never done it. So okay, so yeah, so the Quip guide there, yes. So I'm gonna put that sfdc.com/BPA39B.
I wonder, Jacqueline, Chris, I wonder if we would be able to, the presentation that we did internally on some of the more process of external actions, I wonder if we could repurpose that and add it in here or something.
We can't access it. I just went to it and the Quip is locked for, it's Salesforce.quip. So obviously I don't have a Salesforce.
Oh, it has external access, so I'm not sure why it's being like that.
Yeah. Let's let me work on that right after this call. And then Ben, I can send you a note with a link that should work. And you and I can make sure your team has the resources they need to view this. I'll get on that ASAP.
Okay.
Yeah, it is open to external. So we're not sure. Well, you can see in the Quip screenshot, it's open to external. So I'm not sure why.
Yeah. So I just, like, when I go to it, it says sign in using your Salesforce.com email address.
Weird.
Weird. Okay. I was going to mention though, Ben, like, for people that want to learn external actions, I'm not sure there's a ton of great resources yet, which is why I think this app is maybe a good resource for starting to learn and connect it together.
Ryan gets in.
And especially Jacqueline, if you go back to that architecture, that's right, because what I would say for anyone that wants to really dig into it, the hardest part for me to get, and I think we talked about that a little bit, is like, how do you connect Engagement Studio all the way to Flow? I would start to think about things in terms of those variables available for input, right, in the flow. So like my mind works backward that way. So like I would say, like, if you want to really see how this comes together, look at the flow first, figure out, like Benj said, what data you need to get from Pardot all the way to flow, make sure that's represented in the flow. Once you update the flow, you can turn back to marketing app extension and external action. And like I said, if you reload that flow, it's going to reload the variables you need automatically from the flow, right? And then that shows up in Pardot. So this is a moment, I'm like a flow advocate here, right? I'm like, this is a moment that if you are into flow and want to do this, it's your time to learn it, right? Because Ben, you're right, there's a lot of other things you can do with code and Apex and calling out to, to other platforms using Apex, right? So like external actions can do a lot more if you're a developer, but the kind of exciting part and the part that I love is Flow makes it a little more declarative for us, right? And a way to learn this external action in the marketing app extension. I don't know if that's helpful for you all. Yeah, learn Flow. I think it's the future.
And that's why I think, I don't know if Justin's still on. I know some people have had to drop, but I think Justin had made a comment around convincing an admin not to use Apex. And I think that's, part of that conversation is just Flow is, part of your, like, if your admin is like, who's going to manage this? You're asking me to put this in here, right? All this stuff, like Flow is intended to be a more declarative manner to write out that Apex. So maybe it is something that you would be able to manage moving forward versus your admin, if they're okay with that, of course. So I think there's just an opportunity for the admin to delegate some of the things that you might be putting in the system, but specific to Pardot. So, all right. Yeah, Brian, I'll join if you do that. I think all three of us probably would. In any event, thank you guys. I know we're coming up right at the top of the hour. Are there any other questions, comments, feedback? We really appreciate everyone joining us. And Ben, thank you for letting us take over one of your user group meeting sessions. We appreciate that.
Yeah, I know. I think you guys are doing this a couple other places.
We have one more scheduled, but not till May. But this will be our third one.
Okay. All right. So this is number 3. Cool. All right. Yeah, I mean, this was great. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this recording and I'm going to upload it on YouTube, and then I'm going to put it on the Pardot Geeks blog, and so it'll be out there as well.
Sure.
So, all right. Well, thank you guys so much. This has been super helpful. For some reason, I can't get into the Quip Doc. Everyone else can. I don't know why. That's weird. But anyways, thank you. Have a great rest of your day. And hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
Thank you.